This is the fourth video. We're going to just pick up where we left off from the third into some of these calculated columns and what they mean. So the next one, WG that's just splitting out for both of these columns. We're just splitting out the difference between if it's a wage grade type of pay or a general schedule. So that's what we're looking for here. In this one, what we're doing is we're introducing the left formula. So if left of current pay plan, so if we scroll over to pay plan and to the drop down box, we've got GS, WG, and WS. So all this formula is doing is saying if the first character in the left, it could be number, letter, whatever, but in this case it's a letter, if the first one in that column is a W, then give me my adjusted pay in this column for wage grade. And then in the GS it says if this is GS, you see it's surrounded by quotation marks. That means text. If I were to take that out, it would error out, but quotation marks is text. Give me the adjusted pay. So you can see it's just splitting these out, and you can also see that the decimals run out to 4 and 5. That's just because I adjusted the pay amounts with what we showed you in that bonus video where I was adjusting the actual numbers. So these aren't real actual numbers whenever we're displaying them on an open use training video. Pay hour code, this is just giving some definition to what would otherwise be things that don't make sense to most people. So is it employee contributed for FERS? Is it regular ungraded? So on and so forth. So what we did was our VLOOKUP. So you've seen this several times now. We did a VLOOKUP to that pay hour code and we returned the description. We can use that in our pivots, or if you want to expand on this report to perhaps split out and see how that works. Just really depends on how your wing and your leadership wants to view their civilian pay program. But there's a lot of options. The next one is issue. So I'm going to go back into the formula, check formula here, evaluate formula option, and what I want to do is explain something. Whenever Excel goes through logic, it does a formula. If we're doing a logic statement like an or an and statement, an if statement, what it does is it's going to search for the first true statement. That's what matters. All the falses, it just runs right past them, but when it finds that first true, that's when it's going to do the action you tell it to do. So with an or statement, we're saying if any of these conditions are true. And this here, I'm looking for that line of accounting. So let me step into this, and I'm going to go to this one first and then issue. I'm going to run through it kind of quick. Look at the video again. It'll make sense, I promise. So I used an if statement and an or statement. So it's going to evaluate each expression individually. So I'm going to click evaluate through. It says PEC-PERS equals nothing. Well, that's showing me something, so it says false. So you see these falses kind of keep going. It's evaluating each of these conditions that I told it to evaluate. And let's see if I can get it right to the end here. So I've got a bunch of, look at this, or, false, false, false. Each one of these conditions is evaluating, and they're all coming to a false. My if statement says if any of these things are true, or any of these. So if I had one true, the if it were true is issue. Tell me it's an issue. Flag that for me. And if it's false, then give me nothing. In this case, they're all falses. So the if statement is going to return me false, or nothing, I'm sorry. So it's going to return me nothing. It is false, so it's going to return me nothing. With the issue one, let's step into this one. Start to evaluate. So that first one's false. PEC-PERS equals nothing. Uh-oh. So on this one, the PEC-PERS equals nothing. Let's scroll over in this line here. And what we can see is PEC-PERS, it didn't find anything. So what that would initially lead us to believe is we need to get into DCPDS, work with our HR liaison, and figure out how we can correct for that. If the PEC-PIF was wrong, we would need to look in DCIPS with our own folks in the FM. So that's how this works. It's doing a quick thing, evaluating many things in no time, and you wouldn't even realize how short of a time it took to actually do that, to flag you to have actionable information. LSL yes no. I actually want to retitle this LSL or awards, because that's really what I'm checking for in here. And I did another or statement, so I said or LSL does not equal 0 or awards does not equal 0. So I'm going to highlight in here, and here's another thing you can do. We're in edit mode now, or you see that blinking cursor here. When I get into edit mode, or you can hit F2, will put you in edit mode. It will also highlight the cells that are in action here that it's evaluating. So in this case, I'm just looking to see, is it an award or LSL or not? And you can see trues and falses, and what that lets me do in a pivot is say, hey, what if I want to just see those LSL and awards like we do down here in the LSL and awards tab? Well, I can just filter by that true, so that's why this is helpful. The last calculated column was here. Now you can't, with my fake names here, you can't see it as well, but somehow in the process of entering information into DCPDS and it flows through into my R60, sometimes, let's just say a name that I can actually pronounce, Amanda Softon. Sometimes Amanda Softon will come out with Amanda Softon and then the middle initial A, let's just say A. And then you'll come down here in another pay period, or potentially the same pay period, and it will say Amanda Softon A with a period after it. And so somebody entered it in like that, and now to any kind of data analysis, it looks like two completely separate entries. So what we did here, because if you go into a pivot now, it's not going to roll that up. It's not going to think it's the same person. So what we did is this. We're going to use the substitute function, and so what it's saying is substitute, and it says what's the text. So the employee name is the text, and then what's the old text, in quotation marks, a period, because I've identified that the period is what's always giving me the problem. So that's the old text. And then the new text. If I do find a period, I want to substitute that period for a null value or nothing. And then I put a trim around it. If you remember from the soft videos, the trim will take out spaces on the front and back. So I'm giving myself those unique identifiers now so that I only have that one person's name once, regardless of whether they put a period at the end of the middle initial or not. That's the end of the calculated columns in this video. Again, they started from hours worked in column X and went all the way to AH. There are other possibilities, of course, but just giving you an idea of where these numbers in your pivots are coming from. See you in the next video.